Welcome to Moms and Mountains, a podcast for moms of all types, divorced, single, married, or widowed. We'll talk about our kids, life, marriages, families, ourselves, and most importantly, our relationship with God. I want to empower all moms to overcome the greatest and smallest mountains of our lives through the power of Jesus Christ. And I want all moms to know they are not alone in their struggles. Thank you for joining me, and let's get into the episode. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to today's episode. Quick note about this episode. This is part 2 of an interview that I did with Heidi and Blakely, a mother and daughter team that volunteers with Operation Christmas Child. So if you missed part 1, make sure to go back and listen to hear the first part of this amazing interview. With that, let's get into the episode and hear the rest of their story. So I just wanted to get into, I had a few things I wrote down while you were talking. We were talking about the image of putting on the new and all of that. But just digging into a little bit on while you guys were there, just to give us some sort of perspective. Was this something that was dangerous? I mean, was there any danger present while you were there?
Specifically with Nosy Bay, is where I was, which is a small island off the coast of Madagascar.
Mm-hmm.
It is a common tourist destination for European tourists specifically. So there's a lot of illicit activities and trafficking things that can go on in that location. So there are inherent dangers from that. But the thing with the ministry is especially because they were taking students, they were very, very careful about security. They sent a team to go and scout out the locations, I think it was a week or 2 weeks before we went. We ended up splitting into 2 teams because there was over 20 students. So we had 2 teams, and each team had their own security officer that went with them that knew the area, knew the locals, and knew kind of what to look out for if any danger could possibly be occurring.
Mm-hmm.
Because we are very blatantly sharing the gospel with children, and these areas have other religions that would be less accepting to that.
Right.
So there, of course, is that danger. The good thing about it is, along with the gospel, we are giving gifts to the children as well. So a lot of people, some people wouldn't want to risk their child not receiving a gift because of a hatred towards Christianity or the gospel, because it could possibly provide them the opportunity to go to school or achieve something that they wouldn't otherwise have. And I mean, parents just want to see their kids happy and want to have their kids receive a gift, because just these parents might not be in a situation where they have the capability to give gifts to their children, and so it's a blessing for them to be able to see that joy in their child's face.
Right.
We thankfully didn't have any issues while we were there, but the ministry is very careful about making sure that the safety is a priority. That's one of their top priorities.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
I think ours was in South Africa was a little different because we were all adults. So that I think made a little bit, I think probably with the students, they probably did have to go to a place that was maybe at the time a little safer.
Right.
With us, every location minus maybe 2 had tall fences with concertina wire around all the church building. We had security with us everywhere we went. When I say we had briefings, it was, if we tell you go, you get in the van, we are going. You don't ask questions, you just go.
Wow.
From where we were staying, there was tall fences and concertina wire all around the top of the fences of the place that we stayed. And there was a fence that you could go out and kind of walk around. And they said, if you are outside of that and it is dark, you will get mugged.
Yeah.
Not a question of you might, it is you will.
Wow.
So do not step outside of that.
Mm-hmm.
So they were very, very serious with the safety portions of it, and the safety briefings happened every day, sometimes multiple times a day.
Wow.
Because it is an issue.
Wow, that is wild. And you had mentioned there are other religions there.
Yes.
So, but you'd also mentioned that the kids were there singing,
Yes.
right? So do you know if these were kids that come from Christian families, or is it a Christian community that you guys would go to? How did that work with the different religions, but then you've got a group of children that are there in the church just worshiping? What does that look like?
So for us in South Africa, just Samaritan's Purse in general, in order to receive shoeboxes in an area, the local pastor has to request those from the ministry.
Okay.
And so he is already he is trying to get into the community. He's trying to share Christ. He sees the opportunity to share shoeboxes with children as a way to bring people in who may not come otherwise. So this is a gospel opportunity. It is a big deal.
Right.
To even for the pastor to even be approved to receive the shoeboxes is a big deal.
Wow.
And the local pastors partner together, at least in the area that we were, and they are constantly in communication. So one of the pastors, for example, told us that if a person came to visit their church, but they normally attended another church, that as a pastor, he would tell the other church leader, hey, your parishioner was at our church today. So they worked together,
Okay.
which is very different from the way things are here.
I was just thinking that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's very, very different. Where Blakely was describing very well how she felt the presence of God. For me, there was a heaviness and there was a darkness.
Wow.
In the places that we went. It was draining. And I don't want to say, oh, it was all bad, because it wasn't. It was fabulous, because then we had the opportunity to go to a session of the Greatest Journey, which is the discipleship program. And you can physically feel the difference in the air, in the atmosphere.
Wow.
From going from a distribution to going to the Greatest Journey.
Wow.
So I don't have good words to explain the difference, but besides the heaviness and then the freedom or the lightness that you feel because you can feel the presence of God.
I mean, because I also went to a Greatest Journey session, and the way that I noticed it was basically in the kids' eyes. Because as we're driving through, going to different distributions and different locations, we kind of see some of the kids that just live in the area, and comparing the look in those kids' faces to the kids that come to the Greatest Journey, you just see a hope in their eyes. And they're just so happy to be there because they're able to learn about something that they can hold on to, and that will keep them safe and spiritually sound for the rest of their lives, hopefully, but at least something for them to hold on to for the next week.
Right.
Something that can give them hope and strength in the daily challenges that they face. So
probably in a very unsafe place, and not just unsafe physically, but emotionally, spiritually. I have to imagine that they don't feel safe pretty much most of the time. Yeah. Did you witness any sort of this spreading to their family? I mean, do you know if they go back, they talk to their brothers and sisters, their parents? I mean, do you see any of that, or do you hear about any of that?
So, we didn't specifically see anything like that I can remember off the top of my head. But we'll talk to the pastors, and whenever they go through the Greatest Journey, whenever they graduate, they receive a New Testament Bible in their language, and then they are also given the challenge to share the gospel with 10 people. The pastors, we were talking to them, were like, so, like, how does that work? Like, I mean, do they actually do it? And they kind of laugh and they go, they oftentimes overshare beyond just the 10 people, because it's just such a life-changing event for them, and it's just such a radical ideology that they want to share that hope and love with everybody. So they go back and they share it with their families, and they share it with their friends and their friends' families, and it just kind of like that word just kind of spreads around their communities.
Wow. You know, and like Blakely was saying, they go back and share, but some of these kids, they're not able to read yet, and so they bring their material home, and mom usually is reading it with them,
Right.
reading it to them.
Wow. Yeah.
So even
Yeah.
if she didn't hear it there, she's reading it over and over
Yeah.
to them. All of this material is printed in their language. So they don't have to know English, they just have to know how to read in their language.
Right.
And it's printed in their language to read it to their children. So
Wow.
sometimes it's that way. But we had a lot of parents at the distributions.
Oh, wow.
So sharing the gospel, they were there. They
That's
heard
awesome.
it. And one of the facilities, that last facility that I was telling you about with the cinder block building, it was owned by a Hindu man, and he was there. So we know
Wow.
that he heard the gospel. So, you know, we focus on children because that's what this is about.
Right.
But there's so much peripheral sharing that goes on that we couldn't number it.
Yeah. I think that with children, their hearts are the most open sometimes.
Sure.
A lot of times with adults, we're I say we, we're very stuck in our ways, and I'm sure that is global, where, you know, oh no, I'm good, I don't need to hear any of that. But children are they're so open to things like that. And so it's a good way to plant a good seed that grows and spreads to their entire community, which is so amazing. And the fact that if they are in a dangerous place and they're still showing up, those kids are smart. Those kids are, I would imagine, and I've never been to Africa, but I would imagine they are street smart, and they know, that if they are in danger, but they're still telling over 10 people, 20 people, whatever it is, and they're still spreading it. And that's so encouraging. That's so encouraging to hear. So I wanted to ask you, Heidi, actually.
Okay.
What is it like to see your daughter doing something like this that you've been so passionate about for so long? How has it been for you to watch her do this?
The distribution was amazing. The going on the trip was amazing. But it is a gift that God has given me to be able to see my daughter share Christ with others. You know, so, you know, we talk about the shoeboxes and the children and that is, like I said, it's just, that was the platform that gave her the opportunity to do that. And as a mom, like I said at the beginning, after she was talking, I was like, I just want to sit and listen to her.
Right. I caught that.
Because I mean, every time she speaks, it's a gift to my heart. Because what more would a mom want than that?
Yeah.
To know that I have this opportunity here, but we have this for eternity.
Yeah.
I have the confidence to know that I never have to be away from her forever.
Yeah.
Forever.
Yeah.
And that is the best gift that God could ever give me with all of my children.
Blakely, how is it for you to be on the receiving end of that?
I don't know. So it's just one of those things where it's like I have just all the time, like talking with my friends and stuff, just, you know, we talk about our parents and everyone has their issues and like, oh man, I'm like, oh, my mom or my dad really frustrated me or annoyed me with that. But I just sit back and I go, I was immensely blessed. Like I've had things where I've been like annoyed or frustrated with my parents before, just because growing up that happens. But just having the support of parents of just, we don't care what you do as long as you do it to the best of your ability and to the glory of God.
That's all you could ask for. It really is. To have that support is amazing.
Definitely.
Do you think that this, not just the experience of traveling, but also working for the same ministry, because you guys are working every year with this, right? Are you still doing it for the most part, or?
So we are not year-round volunteers at the moment.
Okay.
She had been she was in college for a little bit, and then then school got really busy and she stepped away. And then the Lord has called me into seminary.
Yep.
And so that makes me very busy, writing a lot of papers. So that's where we're at. But my opportunity was in 2019, and the next year was COVID.
Right.
And so
that's right.
There has been no more vision trips since 2019.
Really?
Yes. And
wow.
So this was a gift that God gave us, and we want to, anybody who wants to hear it, we want to share it as much as we possibly can.
Wow.
If it promotes the ministry, if it promotes, packing shoeboxes, whatever it might be, because we still have a love for the ministry, even though we're not actively year-round volunteers at the moment.
Right.
We still pack shoeboxes.
And they're still going out. So it's just that you can't be a volunteer and go with them, but they still have their local partners. They're still going out, right?
And they still have year-round volunteers here. There's hundreds of them all across the United States. Probably thousands, so I probably misspoke. But so anywhere across the United States, there are year-round volunteers, and anybody can do that.
Like I said, I started whenever I was like 14 or 15, and I've worked on the same team as women that are in their 70s and 80s. So you can get involved as a year-round volunteer in any level. They have different community relations types of things. That was what our positions were. I was community/student relations, just trying to encourage other people in the community to pack shoeboxes. There's church relations, and if you're more logistically minded, you can work for the logistics side of it to get all the shoeboxes to their central pickup location to get them to the processing center. Just a ton of different ways for however God's gifted you. Just great ways to get into the ministry.
Do you both feel like this has created a different type of bond because of this experience you've shared between the two of you? Has it brought you closer in any way?
Well, she's the baby and she's the only girl, so she's pretty special. But we definitely have a shared experience that a lot of, I would say, mom daughters don't have. We have great theological conversations.
Wow, that's awesome.
And she is able to do things that, I go, oh, wow, I can see that. She worked at a summer camp and a few years back, and they had to be able to take any situation and apply it to scripture in some way. And let me share it.
Yeah, so I worked at a summer camp, and it was a Christian summer camp, and I worked as a lifeguard because that's just been my thing ever since I was in high school. And we had to do what they called SPAPs, which are spiritual applications. So it was taking whatever situation we were doing. So like if I was working at the creek, like taking this life jacket, like Jesus is your life jacket, and turning that into a gospel presentation. And being like, Jesus keeps you safe and he keeps you from going under, and you can hold on to him just like you can hold on to this life jacket. I was trained in that way to kind of be able to apply things and make things more tangible because I'm a very logical, see and kinetic person. And so it brings spiritual things that can be very one of my previous Sunday school teachers, he said very rubber room, where you're just bouncing off the walls. You're like, oh, there's that, but then there's this, and trying to understand these spiritual things is very difficult. But it kind of grounds it and okay, yeah, this makes a little bit more sense because I can understand the physicality of it.
Right. It's hard to, when you talk about spiritual things, and what comes to mind is the Trinity.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
That is totally a rubber room.
Yeah.
Where you're but this, but Jesus, but the Holy Spirit, but what? And it's just, you're bouncing all around.
We're still monotheistic? What?
What's happening? Yeah.
And where I am more like Blakely, let me tell you. So I looked up this word, and and this word in Latin means this, but then if you take it and you put it in Hebrew, this is what it means here. And she's like, okay. But then she can go, but you can apply it this way. Oh yeah, that's good. That is good. We could do that.
It's a good example of the way that two different minds work.
Yeah.
That's awesome. How do you guys think, I know you've kind of shared this in an indirect way, but how do you think that this program has impacted your walk with God?
You can go first.
Yeah, like I said whenever I was telling my story, it was a huge turning point for my walk, definitely. Because I was in high school and, I was in that slightly rebellious, but also I know that this exists because I've experienced stuff even growing up. I accepted Christ at a young age and got baptized when I was 12, 10 or 12, something like that. And so it's I know he's there, and it's how, but then I gotta follow all these rules or something. And it's just learning the relationship side of it and the love side of it, and this kind of really kicked that into gear of I love you.
Mm-hmm.
I know who you are, I know where you're at, and I love you for it. Because I collect soda bottles. And so while I was there, I was oh, I'd love to be able to collect a soda bottle from Madagascar. That'd be awesome. All the places that we ate at, though, they reuse the soda bottles. They wash them and fill them back up with whatever soda was supposed to go in them. And so I was I don't want to take those because they need those for their businesses.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever, I'll carry on. I'll be fine. Well, one day we had stopped by a shop. And we were looking around, and I was okay, I want to get some knickknacks, get some stuff for my parents, my brothers, and different stuff like that. And I walked into this shop, and I looked over to the right, and there were wooden bottles. That had caps glued on, they looked like soda bottles, and they had labels in Malagasy on them. And so they had taken all of the defining features of a soda bottle and put it onto a permanent wooden statue, basically. And I was why would they do that? That's such a niche interest. And I was God put that right there for me to be I wanted you here. Mm-hmm. You are where you're supposed to be. Yeah. Everything you're experiencing isn't because of coincidence. I put you here. Mm-hmm. And I was nice, I'm gonna buy it. So yeah.
Wow, that's awesome.
I think for me, it was, I was a little more mature. I was old.
Mature. We'll stick with mature.
Okay, yeah. Well, mature is a much kinder word. So, I wouldn't say it's dissimilar, because anytime that God gives us an opportunity to serve him in a way we couldn't have imagined, it's a blessing to be able to be used and know that you're being used by him. Mm-hmm. So it was definitely that. But just being in the ministry, a year-round volunteer, working with other people who are passionate about sharing the gospel, and knowing that everywhere I go, all across the United States and even around the world. One time I was in Italy, and I was wearing an Operation Christmas Child sweater, and a man stopped me and said, he was from England, and he was you know this ministry? And I said, yes, I work with this ministry. And it is worldwide, but being able to see how ministry works for me, it has been that opportunity. Things that I had no idea. I had no clue. And how well it is structured, and the people are trained, and everything that goes into it, to serve God at the very best that we possibly can. Mm-hmm. Everything that they do within the ministry is the very best they could possibly do.
Wow, that's awesome.
So learning that has been very, like I said, just eye-opening for me.
And knowing that there are people all over the world, it's kind of that same concept of pulling back and getting outside of the blinders that we have, that we were talking about earlier, the day-to-day grind, mm-hmm. and pulling back and be there are people worldwide. I don't know how many. I'm sure it's like you said, there has to be thousands, mm-hmm. at least. Mm-hmm. And just knowing that they're all working towards the same goal.
Right.
It makes you feel very part of such a connected community, I would imagine.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we're right now here, National Collection Week this year is November 14th through the 21st.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what we're focused on here. Shoeboxes, what do you put into them? Making them the best we can, getting them turned in. We're soon going to be transitioning to processing those shoeboxes. But what is going on around the world at this moment are the teams that are praying that people will pack shoeboxes.
Yeah.
Because if we don't pack them here, they don't get them there.
Right.
If we don't pack here, then the fewer children that are going to hear the gospel in the over 100 countries around the world that receive shoeboxes.
Right.
So yeah, it is a constant. They're training, they're praying, they're preparing, and they're trusting in faith that God's going to move on our hearts. He's going to provide in miraculous ways here so that we can pack the shoeboxes, and that as we're praying, because it is prayed for through every step of the process, and those boxes get to them, and then they're able to distribute them.
Right. So you said that the National Collection Week, November 14th to the 21st.
Yes.
So how do people pack a shoebox? So after listening to all of these amazing stories, I'm sure everybody's sitting there going, all right, I'm game. I want to pack a shoebox.
Yes.
So now where do they go and what do they do?
So there's a couple of ways that you can pack a shoebox. You can pick up a shoebox from, I think Hobby Lobby is selling the plastic ones. Then you can also collect the cardboard ones from any local churches that are involved in the ministry, or you can just get a shoebox from your closet. If you bought a new pair of sneakers, just take that shoebox and take it to Walmart or Dollar Store or whatever, wherever you want to go, and you can start filling it up. The most important thing that you can pack in a shoebox is prayer, because like we've kind of hit on a couple of times, God knows exactly who's receiving these shoeboxes. So fill it with what you feel God has put on your heart to put in it. We always suggest like one large wow item. So it's like the item that they open the box and they see it and they're like, oh my goodness, a teddy bear, a soccer ball, a jump rope, something like that. Then we also always suggest a toothbrush, no toothpaste, anything with an expiration date cannot be shipped. So a toothbrush and then a bar of soap. Personally, I like to pack ivory bars because they float in water. So if they bathe in like the river or something, it floats. So they can just grab it and just use it.
Yeah.
Hygiene items, school supplies, pencils and notebooks. If you're packing pencils, instead of going for like the Ticonderoga, go for something that's colorful, like something that's like covered in sparkles, or is like a bright red or blue, or colored pencils also specifically are a good option to send as well, because they might not get very colorful pencils. Even if they do have pencils, it might be like a government issued like a normal yellow or normal brown one. So packing anything that's bright colors, lots of smells, lots of different textures, just stuff that they wouldn't be able to encounter in everyday life would be a huge blessing to them, and they would just be over the moon.
And toys.
Yes,
Toys. Every child loves toys.
Yeah.
So all the little knick-knack games. Blakely used to love those little like mind bender games where you hook the little metal pieces together and you try to unhook them or something like that. Things like that. I mean, musical instruments, the like birthday party blowers,
harmonicas.
Yeah, balloons. They love balloons. Cars, like Matchbox cars, are a good thing. And it doesn't necessarily, just because I'm packing a girl box does not mean that I can't put some cars in there.
Right.
So yeah, find what you can, pack it in there. But yeah, the toys. So I mean, because kids are not that different. They want toys.
Yes.
Little bouncy balls, no liquids. So even the bouncy balls that have liquids in them, don't pack those, because those would have to be removed. But yeah, and just like we said, pray about it and have fun with it. Because as you're walking through and you're putting these items in, imagine the joy of this child who's going to get this amazing box.
Yeah, that's awesome. And remembering that it's not just like you said, a humanitarian
venture. This is the gospel. So
Mhm.
imagining yourself packing for the gospel to be spread,
Yeah.
which is really awesome.
Yeah.
Where can people drop them off? I know some people have church. If they go to a church that does this, they can drop it off at church, which is very simple. Do you know of any other places?
So if you go to the Samaritan's Purse website, the Operation Christmas Child, and I don't have that memorized, I should. But
I have it here.
Okay.
But I'll put it in the notes as well. But it's just SamaritansPurse.org/Operation Christmas Child. But
Okay.
I'll put it in the notes as well.
There should be a place where it says drop-off locations, and you'll put in your zip code, and then it will give you all the locations that are close to your area and the days and times that they're open to receive shoeboxes.
Perfect.
So you can take them then and drop them off.
Okay. That's awesome.
I mean, also, if you don't want to, or you don't have the time to go out and pack a shoebox yourself, you can also do it online. You can go to SamaritansPurse.org/Operation Christmas Child, and there's a button where you can click, and then you can just drag and drop the different toys and items, and you can just pack it online. I believe it's $25, and that covers shipping, education materials, all of that type of stuff.
That's awesome. And you can also donate as well, right? You can donate on their site, and you can pay for different things if you want to fund the little booklets and things like that. So you don't have to just be limited to packing the box. So yeah.
And also when you pack a box, if you choose to pay for your shipping online, you can print off a QR code that you would tape to your shoebox. And then after the shoeboxes are distributed, you'll get an email, and you can go to their website, and you'll have a special code or something, and it will tell you where your shoebox went.
That's awesome.
Yep, it'll tell you what country.
That's awesome. I think they've really kept up with the times.
Because Operation Christmas Child has been around since 1980, 1990? I can't remember the date. I think it was 1996.
It has to have been a while, because I think they were doing it when I was a kid. It's a long time now. Heidi's laughing, making a face at me.
Oh my. Remember, we're going with that. We're mature.
Yeah.
It's been around for a while, but they have definitely kept up. And I mean, if you have the opportunity to go to their processing centers, they also sell Operation Christmas Child merchandise, shirts and stuff. And their designs are very with the times. They're not the kind of kitschy classic Christian designs you might think of. They have actual designers that are on staff that make these shirts to align with where people are in fashion and stuff.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, thank you guys. This was awesome.
Thank you.
Seriously,
Thank you.
I'm so glad I heard you guys talk, and I'm so glad I got to really dive in and hear the full spectrum of the story. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having us. We love to share.
I love that. I love that. Well, thank you guys for joining us. We hope that you enjoyed this podcast. I know we enjoyed it, and we hope to see you at the next podcast.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please give it a review. This helps to recommend this podcast to others. You can also follow my Instagram at Moms and Mountains Podcast, all one word. Bye-bye for now, and we'll see you at the next episode.